Hey there, everybody. We need to have a talk. And I decided that, after observing some bizarre trends going on with my own business, as well as some other psychics, some other readers who I won't name, but we've been having some chats behind the scenes, I would talk about the importance of knowing how to ask a good question and how a question can make or break a reading. Now, if you've ever gotten a reading from me, you know that I have an entry form on my page that you fill out and you give me everything that I need in order to give you the reading, right? Because I do tarot and astrology, so I ask for birth date, time, and location of birth, and then of course I have a questionnaire that you fill out so that I can get down to business. I have noticed an abundance of ambiguous, impressionistic, vague, flat, shallow questions coming in. And again, other readers have as well, to the point where it's almost impossible to work with the question that is being asked of the person asking the question. And if you are a reader yourself, you are aware that that can be a serious problem because when you are connecting with your guides, with your own higher levels of consciousness, your tools, and you are going in to investigate a question or a situation, if you don't know what you're looking for, then you can't ask directions on where to find it and what's going on. And a lot of really evasive, ambiguous, impressionistic questions that are not really questions at all can be very problematic for being able to get anything done. Now, sometimes this can show up where a person is just very, very new and they don't know anything about what's going on with the practice itself. And that is on us, that is on the psychic, on the reader to be able to guide them through. So if a person's coming in and they don't know that psychic doesn't mean mind reader, then of course that is on us to kind of clarify, like, look, some people can read minds, but most people who are, say, seers, like myself, who look into the future, they do predictive work, we're not, in the telepath group. We can't read your mind and go like, oh, that's what you mean to say, or that's what you're saying, or that's what's going on. And when you're reading, especially with tools like tarot, or even just working on communication with your higher self and your higher levels of consciousness, it can be a lot like a genie in a bottle. You have to know how to make the wish the right way. Your guides and your higher levels are not interested in trying to figure out what somebody's trying to say. And so there really won't be any kind of meaningful connection or information that comes through if you're just dealing with directionless, vague, impressionistic language. And that has been a problem. And I feel like a lot of that has to do with the fact that there are a lot of really shitty people out there in the spiritual world, kind of just treating this like it's new church or turning it into the metaphysical clinic and not really honoring the craft in any way, shape, or form. And because some people feel emotionally validated by that kind of chicanery, they prop it up and think that's how it really works. But the truth of the matter is, if you are going to be consulting any form of divination, you have to set a good intention. And the same thing goes for any kind of work in manifestation or energy work or, connecting with your own multidimensional expanse or casting spells or doing rituals. You have to know what you're doing. And that is the balance that a lot of people, I think, especially with this influx of maybe too much passivity in the spiritual community, in the spiritual conversation, have forgotten, right? It's, living the balance of intention and intuition is crucial, because if you're going strictly all intention all the time, things become rigid, right? You're too controlled. Everything is just way too fixated on one thing. But if you're going in way too intuitive a fashion, or you are living in too intuitive a way, then you become chaotic and out of control, right? You're just an object in the universe, devoid of purpose and meaning. It's just, I just go where the energy goes. I just go where the flow goes. I just go where this goes. And there really isn't any participation in the experience of being a soul evolving. There isn't an experience of that if you're just sort of, an object at the mercy of the circumstances of everything around you. And so you do need to be able to know how to articulate yourself, ask good questions, and specify your desires and your needs. I've also noticed, however, that a lot of people, have just kind of not bothered to do that. And even with people like me who force you to ask a question when you fill out the questionnaire, and there are very clear guidelines, there seems to be this sort of vacillating between two extremes that's been encouraged in the conversation online. Either you've got what I was saying before, the no good, not helpful, vague, overly general, impressionistic, ambiguous kind of speak. It's almost like just talking because you're being told to talk, but there's really no meaning or anything going on there. It's just like a lot of shallow affects in words. And usually it's like a 1-2 sentence statement that conveys nothing. Or it's a ream, it's a purge, it's a, emotional dump, it's a trauma dump, it's a life story dump. And you can't work with that either, because there's probably 9 or 10 different questions in a dump like that. And the reader, especially, in that moment, it's like, I don't even know what you want me to focus in on, right? Because we need to be able to focus in on what you're talking about. If you are a psychic yourself, and you try to kitchen sink a reading, right? Because maybe you are learning how, and maybe you're accidentally doing your reading. You're getting into your cards, you're looking at the astrology, or your guide, you're calling out to your guides, and you're trying to kitchen sink a reading. You're going to get an incoherent mess back. Again, this is like a genie in a bottle. You have to make the wish the right way. Now, I try to guide people through that process, of finding the perfect middle, of not giving too little but not giving too much, and being able to also make sure that I am doing the work as the psychic as well. Because you do need to be careful of people posing as readers that basically ask you to front load way too much information, and they take advantage of that. And in another video, I did mention, there is the, quote, perfect form that I've realized that works for when I do readings that I would recommend everyone adopt, because other people that have adopted this have also noticed that their readings are a lot better, a lot more clear, a lot more specific. And so we want that, right, in a reading. We don't want general, like, oracle deck, you just need to feel empowered, or go out and play, or you're a good person stuff. We're talking about real psychic readings here. We're not talking about, a bunch of sappy crap. The way you want to organize your question, again, without saying too much and without leaving everything out, is that first, you need to be clear with your question. What do you want? What do you want to know? What are you here for? What are you trying to ask the cards, the reader, or if you are the reader yourself, what are you looking at? What are you focusing on? You do not want to just, don't go in with the sort of naive idea that, well, I'm going to a spiritual situation, I'm contacting my guides, or I'm contacting a reader, and they will know what to do because they always know what to do, and I'm just looking for someone to tell me what to do. That might be transference from organized religion programming. We are not priests, at least not in the way that it's getting projected. We are not gurus. We are not religious authorities that are going to say, well, okay, you need to go over here and do this because this is what your dogma is. You do not want to approach any of this that way. Again, this is more akin to a martial art. This is a modality. This is a way of life. It's not a lifestyle, and it's not a religion, and there isn't a dogma. And you got to watch out for wounded people with too many issues who are trying to make it so that they feel secure in a world where they're not intelligent enough to control themselves. The thing is, once you figure out what your question is, you don't really need to know a whole lot more than that. You don't have to state a whole lot more than that. You don't have to give your life story. In fact, excess emotional energy can also really F up a reading pretty bad. And you don't really need to give a lot of extraneous details because you don't want the reader or yourself to get distracted with extraneous details. We want to focus on the core of what we're looking at. So the way I format my questions, and again, I've noticed some people not bothering to follow directions for whatever reason, and I'm not sure if that's just sort of like there's something else going on the spiritual, if you know what I mean, and that's what's kind of drawing all this in, and maybe I need to kind of deal with it, or if it's just sort of a weird, ugly trend. But you don't need to say a whole lot. For me, it's always like 4 sentences, really. That's all you need, 4 sentences, not too much, not too little. Be clear with your question. Make sure that the reader knows what you want to know, what your goal is, and if anyone or anything else need be considered, and then finally, how long has your present situation been going on as it's relevant to what's happening now. 4 easy sentences, and then we call it good. I think that when we go into a situation where we're just kind of throwing the situation we're at somebody and then saying, please advise, or I just need clarity, we're being evasive, or we are acknowledging that we're completely ignorant of the place we've ended up in and we haven't been paying attention very much. I think that if you want to have a good reading, you gotta be able to be present as an authority on your situation, in that situation with the person or the guides that you are seeking for reading in on it. That is the secret to having a good reading that goes places. You can lose a lot of time in a reading if you are trying to figure out what you want to say and you're the reader and you're kind of like, I don't even know what question to ask my cards or ask my guides, because the truth of the matter is guys, once you ask the question to us, we ask the question again. So if the question doesn't make any sense, or if it's too impressionistic, or it's too vague, or it's too emotional, or it's the kitchen sink, or we're just throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks, nothing's going to happen, because, well, when we're talking about higher vibrational energies and higher vibrational connections bringing this information in, all of those frequencies are jammed, or they're getting muddled, they're getting garbled, and sometimes it's like guides will just be like, look, ask the question a better way, this feels almost forced, this feels superficial, not going to go there. So it's really important to be clear on what you want, and don't get readings until you know what you want. Don't pay for somebody to listen to you in a reading. Don't pay a reader for their company. Don't pay a reader for their energy. You want to pay a reader for a reading. And that's going to help you as well, I think, discern between the people who are serious about this and care about the integrity in this versus the people who are just trying to sell attention and energy and a diversion. You don't want that at all, because you'll never get a good reading from that situation anyway. So this was just sort of a little PSA that I thought I needed to put up there, and help kind of steer maybe at least a few boats away from a waterfall that is getting quickly approached in this community. You gotta know what you want to find what you want. You have to know where you're going before you get directions on where you're going. You need to know what you're asking for before you can ask what it's all about. Asking the right questions and knowing how to state your intentions properly is crucial to human development, but it's also crucial to any kind of successful spiritual work. Those channels do not turn on in a mess, and those channels do not turn on all by themselves, and that information doesn't come when there's nothing to talk about. So I hope you guys found this helpful. I hope that this, if you are maybe interested in getting readings and things like that, this helps you maybe see, help discern the difference between, okay, how this really works versus how it's being posed to work. And for those of you who are students of the craft, students of astrology, students of tarot, students of psychic arts, I hope this helps you, maybe build up a good framework for how you want to go about working with yourself and working with other people, so you don't end up in these weird roadblocks, or you end up in these situations where there is no connection, there's no information at all, and it's almost like, okay, the reading is just sitting in a void and losing energy, right? Because that's where we run into trouble, and that's where we can't really serve, and that's where we also get compromised energetically and spiritually. So let's change the trend now. So that's all I got to say for today, guys. I hope you found this helpful. If you did, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Share it where you think some people could really use the message. I would appreciate that. Just propagate it everywhere. And I will see you all again very, very soon with more here on Integrative Mysticism. And if you would like to get a session with me, you can go on ahead to my website. It's integrativemysticism.com.